of the whole situation. Okay, we are live here. We've got a great guest here. This is Keith and Melissa, and we've got Denny Miller here with us today with Omni Block. So if you have any questions regarding Omni Block, this is the best time. And I'm going to really kind of give you a kind of a quick little pitch as to why Omni Block is so interesting. But again, every Thursday we are here from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time where we do a live chat. It's the only place on the internet that I know of where you have an actual general contractor and a realtor. Like, you can ask us questions. We've been in the business for 20 years or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I want to do is here, Denny and I are going to talk here. And again, have your questions ready. It can be about anything, but if you have any question regarding Omni Block or anything masonry oriented or related, you're more than welcome to chime in and ask about those questions. But the neat thing about Omni Block is that a lot of technology has not really solved two problems, and that's a thermal break and effective mass density, okay, or thermal density, whatever you want. There's Denny has a lot of different ways of communicating that, but we don't see that as the two things that you really need to solve in a wall, any envelope of a home. And I see so many people completely ignore the thermal break, which Denny's going to talk about. And then we're going to, and very few talk about effective mass density, or what I would call the bank or the thermal bank, where you bank temperature and energy inside the wall structure of the wall of the home. And we don't think that that is important, or those two things are important in the construction of a home. And I'm seeing a lot, and you don't even see that with ICF. ICF does not have an effective banking technology, at least where it's most effective on the inside wall. So we're going to talk to Denny about those two concepts and anything else. He's got some pictures to show you about Omni Block, and you might get surprised. So welcome, Denny.
Yeah.
Hello. Thanks for having me. This is fun to do. So I don't know where to start or where to get off on, but here, a couple things. We've known each other for a while, but you've been fun watching you grow and your how to build your own home and so on. When I first got started, no one ever talked about thermal mass, and no one they kind of avoided it because they didn't know how to explain it and so on. But it's become a very important thing. And I've kind of broken down and get into that a little bit, kind of broken down a little teaching moment from the standpoint of most people have been in a cave in the summertime. And that cave is cool. You walk into it, and even in basements, sometimes people have been in basements and it's cool. The other thing and the reason is because all the aggregate and all the stone and all the underneath the Earth's crust, or I should say the freeze thaw line, all around the world, it wants to be 56 degrees. That's the natural state below the freeze thaw line. Well, everything that's made in Omni Block's materials, the aggregates and the cement and the sand, they're all those materials. So they all want to be 56 degrees. So how does that relate to construction? Well, kind of back up a little bit. If you drink coffee or cocoa or tea or whatever, it always gets cold. And what that tells you is that heat chases cool. Heat wants to move to the cooler temperatures. It's not the cold trying to get into your coffee, it's the heat leaving. So what happens in a buildings is that we build these buildings with high R values and things that stop the heat from moving through the walls, but the heat moves through the windows and through the doors and through ceilings in some cases, and heating and so on. So what about that heat? Well, what happens is the thermostat registers the temperature gain and then kicks on the air conditioner in the summertime, and the air conditioner cools down that hot air that's come into the building through other means. In an Omni Block home, and you mentioned ICF, they don't have this exposed mass. Omni Block exposes that mass, even though it can look like drywall, mud if we want to, with drywall appearance, but that heat that comes in through the windows and doors and ceiling now has a place to go passively to the block. It seeks to go to the block because it's cooler. So it's a principle of physics. Omni Block didn't invent that. That's something that we're just using. But what that does is it adds to the comfort of the building. It adds to the efficiency of the building. It allows you to downsize the HVAC system, which is all about the cost savings that we enjoy.
So you're talking about solar, passive solar during the wintertime when it comes through the window, heats up the home. Now it goes to a place. Explain where it goes to as far as the Omni Block thermal density.
In the wintertime?
Yeah.
Yeah. The block will absorb heat into a very thin layer. There's a difference, there's different types of heat. There's the heat that hits the block from the sun, and that's solar. And it can hit the block in typical block, which you mentioned earlier, Keith, the direct thermal bridging will drive through the block. And now you have the solar becomes radiant on the inside of the building. And radiant is extremely powerful. You feel it and go, it's not that bad, but it's just constant heat. And that will build up in the home, and that's not what we don't want that. However, that's in the summertime again. But in the wintertime, that heat, the ambient air temperature from your furnace, your cooktop, any source of heat, the block will absorb a very thin layer into the block, and so that actually will release if the house gets a little colder, the heat will leave the block and move to the cooler temperatures, even in the home. So it works both in the summer and in the winter very effectively.
So you're basically banking energy inside the interior wall of the Omni Block. And that's, I think, if I'm correct, that's 1.5 inches thick, if I'm correct.
It's 1.5 inches, close to it, between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches to split hairs. But there's a lot of...
But the real banking occurs within the first 1/4 inch of that, if I'm correct.
Yes.
All right.
There's a lot of what we call heat capacity in block, but you're not going to get to all that capacity because your home doesn't get that warm, and so it's going to absorb heat in the summertime into the block, and that's how it works from a thermal mass standpoint. The problem and why people even the Department of Energy, there has not been a way, and I've got some stories and history of that, but there's not been a way to quantify thermal mass. There's a way to quantify R value. There's a way to quantify U factors. There's a way to quantify SEER ratings. There's all of these different metrics that we use to quantify certain things, but no one has figured out a way to quantify thermal mass. So typically it gets avoided. Even though it works so well, there's not a little box or a little value that you can put in, for thermal mass. So even the Department of Energy overlooks it.
I know, it's sad. They should just go into caves and do the factoring there, and they can pretty much get the effectiveness of thermal mass. Just imagine there's almost no need for HVAC or heating of any kind inside a cave. And I've been inside caves that have a constant temperature of 66 degrees.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is, I don't know if you didn't mention if it was the winter or the summer, but most people travel and they kind of go exploring in the summertime. So you go into that cave and it's 66 degrees. If you would go into the cave in the wintertime, it's 66 degrees.
Right. And all you need is just a movement of some air here and there, and that's nominal. But let's show some pictures real quick. A lot of people really don't know what you can build with Omni Block. This here is the actual side profile of the Omni Block. So if you look at one side of that, the top part of that, one side is the inside, the other side is the outside, and you have that thermal mass on that inside. And then you've got some polyiso foam inserts. Then you've got another concrete. Then you've got another polyiso foam insert. Then you've got another layer of concrete. Now, what people don't know is there's an incredible design in this with regard to there's no thermal bridging in this. It's kind of hard to show. I don't know if you have a picture of that, Denny.
What?
Maybe you can explain how the concrete is connected. It winds through in an odd way.
Yeah. Well, what I did is I took a regular block. A lot of people know what a regular block looks like that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's or any Menards, any of those types of places. But I just the problem was the direct thermal bridging. So what I kind of did, and playing around with certain things, I said, well, we got to get rid of those. Well, what if we get rid of those? What can we do? Well, we put a middle lineal wall that's parallel to the inside face and to the exterior face, and what that allowed me to do was to offset the crosswebs and constrict the crosswebs, so that if you can kind of look at the area there behind that rebar, you can kind of see where the insert sticks down in the crossweb.
Right.
So what we've done is we've delayed that thermal path. We don't really, there's also, we kind of coined the phrase thermal flywheel. So what happens is the sun's going to hit that exterior wall, and it's going to, like we talked about the solar is going to try to drive heat through the block. So we know it's going to start to heat up. We know that's a given. Well, it's going to be stopped in some ways with that first layer of insulation, that long cell that you see. Then it gets to a middle lineal wall that actually becomes a heat sink. And somewhere along the line, the sun is off the wall. It comes up in the east, it's traveling above, and it finally gets above the wall. And now it's not on the wall, so the solar can't drive through to the block to the inside. All we care about is we want to protect that inside face from any heat gain. And we do that. So what happens is once the sun is off the wall, it doesn't happen instantaneously, but eventually that wall starts to cool. And so it starts to get ready for the next day where the sun hits it again. And you got that's why it's called a thermal flywheel. Heats up, cools off, heats up, cools off.
And it's the same thing for the cold too, because now you're talking about building heat on the inside, and it's got all that layers in there, but you can't see it. There's no direct heat chase, no direct line of sight, I guess you could say, for the heat to transfer from one side to the other. It's almost, you have to look at the block and go to this website at omniblock.com, and it gives you some side profiles so you can actually see that concrete winds through in a different way, so it slows that heat transfer.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting is that it works like we talked about in the wintertime. People kind of get confused, kind of get tricked. Their mind plays a game with them a little bit, because you may be in the wintertime, you may have your house nice and toasty, it's warm, and you open up a window or you open up a door and you feel this blast of cold air coming into your home. Mm-hmm. And you think, doggone it, that cold air is just trying to get into my house. No, it's not. It's the heat escaping, being displaced by the cold air. So that's the phenomenon. So the cold doesn't have really any energy. There's no absolute zeros, but the cold isn't trying to get into your house. It could care less. It's the heat trying to get out. So we have a very tight home. The block is warm. It stays warm. It's very comfortable. So that's the benefit of the house in the wintertime, and it's also in the summertime. So it works, like I said, it works both ways very well.
It's just like moisture travels and chases after a dry spot. So take a piece of graham cracker and put it out on a humid day in August. By the end of the day, it's not going to be a graham cracker anymore. So heat chases cold is the same thing. It's one of the laws of thermodynamics, but it's the number one law in building science, is to realize that heat chases cold. Now, the neat thing here is that since heat chases cold, and there's cold side over here, and then there's heat over here, you can have a cold condensing surface in the middle of that wall. We stop that with Omni Block because it doesn't have that capacity.
No, we've never had we build in a lot of humid areas, South Texas, Florida, the Yucatan and Mexico. I mean, we build in a lot of humid areas, and we've never had a wall, quote unquote, sweat or have any condensation. What causes that condensation is a change in temperature.
Right.
And so what it proves, what we're talking about here, the heat's going to heat up the block, but it doesn't get to the inside. Which is another reason why people sometimes ask us, do you have any cracking issues with interior, stud walls and things when they meet up to our block? And the answer is no, we don't. We have zero issues with that. But the reason is because what causes cracking is movement. If you don't have any change in temperature, you have no movement. So you have no cracking.
Right. Let's look at some other pictures here. This here is a favorite thing people are doing is just having the Omni Block exposed for a shower, right?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of. This is a photo that one of my kind of favorites a little bit because I kind of told the guy he should do this and he did it. So, it's a way to get a different look. It's not drywall. It's very durable. This is a polished, burnished look, so it's very smooth, easy to clean, but it's also economical because you don't have to put any tile. Your drain tile, your floor drains right in the floor, so you're able to do this pretty economically. And so if you can save some money and get a different look, it's kind of a nice way to go about things.
The neat thing is if you were to factor in the cost per square foot for that section of the wall, it'd be extremely affordable.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not doing any stud walls, no any, red guard, no drywall.
No moisture issues, you just durability. There's a whole study being done or has been done basically on Omni Block, and it was done by a guy that was the vice president of life cycle analysis on products for Dow Chemical, and he actually ended up building a home in Lake Jackson, south of Houston, a number of years ago. I don't even know if the man's still alive, but he built his home in Lake Jackson, Texas, south of Houston, and before Katrina hit, about 3 weeks before Rita hit, and Rita hit directly. He took the brunt of it directly. Hurricane wind, and it just shows you the durability of Omni Block. Not one issue. I called him before, but everybody was evacuating, and he kind of kiddingly said, "Hey, where am I going to go? I'm in a concrete block building now. Where am I going to go?" And he had his family and friends. They all hunkered down. I called him about a week later, and he goes, "We'll never evacuate this house." So, and it took a direct hit.
Yeah, if you're in Tornado Valley or if you're in Hurricane Central, I mean, you should be building out of this block system.
Yeah.
No question.
Or in a fire area. I can relate it. I don't know if we have time, but I can relate a fairly quick story. I got a call in kind of your neck of the woods, Keith, up in Park City, Utah, from a builder that built a really nice home up there. Turns out that the owner, for health reasons, family health reasons, not his own, but for family health reasons, he had to move back to Ohio. So he sold the house for an asking price. I'm going to keep the numbers off the record here, but in 8 months, he did really, really well in the home. And the realtor is the one that called him and said, "Hey, where are some more Omni Block houses?" And the builder said, "Well, they're custom homes. There's not a lot of them up at Park City, but we do have a few. Why do you ask?" And the realtor said, "Well, the average home right now is on the market in Park City for 90 days, over 90 days. He said, "This house sold in 4.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, for the asking price? Do you know why? Because it was able to get fire insurance, and the rest of these houses can't."
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. I mean, there's so many pluses with these types of technologies. Let's go and look at a couple more pictures real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can talk about these pictures, Denny.
Well, there's just a little different look to. It's not for everybody. You don't have to do a block exposed that you're seeing there. This is in a bedroom. You can do the drywall look, as you can see there. That's over block. We just skim coat drywall mud right onto the block. There's no need for any mesh or anything like that. This is a house that this is actually an Olympic swimmer. She's the Olympic swimmer. He's the architect, and he designed this for her. And this is the half-height Omni Block. This is the brick look. So we've done kind of a nice look there. We sell a lot of these homes. This is on our website. It's in the details. But this is another exposed block. This is called stack bond. Most people are familiar with what's called running bond, where the block is staggered. This is stack bond, and we make the inset, the mortar joints, so the block looks a little proud, looks a little more architectural, very clean. And so we've done a lot of houses like this one as well.
Okay.
This is the outside of that house. I like to show this one because this is a flat roof situation, which is really popular in Florida now because of hurricanes and other places. But it's a clean, a little more contemporary look. But if you see behind the planter, there's two PVC drains. Those drains are actually running within the block from the roof down the block, so you don't have any roof, drains on the outside. So it's a very clean look. Also, that's okay.
I can go back.
We also like to below those drains is basically the stem wall or the foundation wall. We like to recommend doing block if it's going to be exposed on the outside. We recommend doing block stems instead of poured concrete because we don't like to see that difference in where the foundation stops and where the block starts.
So you're talking about pouring the slab after the first 2 or 3 runs of the Omni Block.
We're pouring the slab up to the block. Yeah, we're using the block as the foundation. Frank Lloyd Wright coined that architecture, organic architecture, because it's coming out of the earth and there's no start and stop. And that's another look at most people that have a familiar wood frame. You see the foundation, but you also see that pop out and where the transition is. It's really pretty ugly detail, actually. This is
and it would actually. I did a home like this. I actually had some extra Omni Block, and we actually did a stem wall, and we poured the slab right up to it.
Yep.
And the Omni Block worked for insulating that stem wall, and I didn't have to go as deep into the ground because I had it insulated.
And that's a good way to do it. And the other thing that works really well, that detail, is it insulates the exterior cell. So you don't have to come in the inside and put any insulation before you pour, which is it's not the right detail anyway. The heat's already escaped or they already come into the building before it even gets to that. So the insulation's in the right location with our stem wall block.
Okay, let's look at a couple more pictures and we got a lot of questions coming on here.
Okay. Yeah, this is another shot of that house. And like I said, I like to show it because people it's a really clean look. We have our first, believe it or not, the first Omni Block home is being built in Ohio. It's a spec house, not a big home, but they use this as the model. It's 1,040 square feet. It's a 3 bedroom home. And it's really a neat little home for sure. But they use this one as the model to do it. But it's getting a lot of curb appeal. It's getting a lot of interest. So,
well, the neat thing about that home is that you completely eliminate a subcontractor on the outside.
Completely.
Yes, stucco and brick gone. They're gone.
Yeah, and it's the durability. I mean, there's nothing to crack. There's nothing to there's no paint. It's just a real. Obviously, it's energy efficient for a lot of reasons, but it's also the maintenance on this is minimal. I mean, if there is any. So.
And is this the inside?
Yes, it's a shot from. Well, the first is the patio, and then you see the kitchen inside. So it's a shot from the exterior through the glass into the kitchen. And this architect did a same house of the Olympic swimmer, but basically used natural materials. Used block, concrete, steel, and wood. Mm-hmm. All pretty much exposed. Not a whole lot of other materials other than that.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions here because I know we got quite a few here. This is from Honey Caffeine. Hey, Honey, can you give ideas and thoughts about expansion joints in an Omni Block wall?
Great question. The expansion joints are handled the exact same way as they would be with standard CMU. Typically, you're looking at where most engineers or architects like to have those every 20 feet. So you would put those in the same way that you would in a regular block wall. I don't have access to details, but it's the same. In the stack bond situation that we just saw, you would never see where the control joint was because it would be hidden as it goes up the wall. You wouldn't know where those control joints are. And there are some in that house that we just showed you.
Okay.
I'm going to try and get through the Omni Block questions. We will get to the other questions.
Okay.
This is from Michael Lebenitsky. Many have elected to sandblast Omni Block after install. Can you discuss split face and other finishing options, interior and exterior?
Absolutely. Another good question. Yes, some people have sandblasted Omni Block. It's a great look. It actually, sandblasting is literally just a machine that after the block is up, you take and take a wand basically and just wave it over the block, and it takes the burrs and so on off the block. It is such a nice finish that I literally, the last time I was in a sandblasted Omni Block house, I rubbed my face up against it. It's that smooth. It's very smooth. Yeah, it just softens it. It's obviously still a hard material, but it's a very soft feeling. Okay, so that's after the install. The rest of these finishes that we're going to talk about, you do before you install it. The split face, for example. Some people don't even know what split face is, but basically how split face is made is you make two blocks together. And then once they're come out of the kiln, at the plant, they take and put it into a hydraulic split machine and split the block to make two block like normal, but there are no two split face ever the same. So they're always unique in finish. Split face is kind of, I would, who knows, but we use split face mostly in commercial buildings, not so much in residential. Doesn't mean that we definitely used them before, but it's not as popular in residential. Other finishes, there's some great finishes. One's called burnished. That's synonymous with ground face. We're literally polishing the block or grinding the block to expose aggregates. The shower enclosure that we saw, that is a burnished block. It's showing the aggregate that's underneath the block. So you kind of see that it's got some black and some. Thank you for doing that. Some gray, some black, but those are aggregates within the block. So it's really smooth, very smooth. It's almost like some people will call it vertical granite. It's not quite as smooth as granite, but it's very, very close.
Okay.
Another one that we've done is shot blast. Now that is a lot like sandblasting, but it is a deeper exposure. And if you did that after you put the block up, you would actually blow out your mortar joints. So you can't do that. You got to do the shot blast before. But it's a rougher texture, not nearly as rough as a split face, but it's certainly rougher than a burnished finish. So those are, of course, you got all kinds of colors. You got tons and tons of colors that you can do.
You can just brick it. I've done that. If they get the tool joint just fine, there's a couple of burrs on there. I just take a brick to it, and it smooths it out pretty quick and easy.
Yeah. There's a few tricks that they use. You've been around too many masons, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Okay, next one. That's the Holden MCG. I saw a few videos from Wick Wright showing CMUs holding a lot of water. Since no wall is 100% waterproof, how does Omni Block provide drainage for incidental water that enters the assembly?
These guys have some good questions here. First of all, we never use the term waterproof. We're water resistant. There is no real such thing as waterproof. We certainly aren't made for an aquarium or a pool. Not to be facetious, but we got to be realistic here. What we do is we put an integral water repellent in the block when it's being made. So there's chemical additives that are added to the block. Doesn't add a lot of money to the cost, maybe 30 cents roughly to each block. And then we have the mason add a integral water repellent to his mortar mixture, so that when he's putting the block up with the mortar, it also has a resistant material to it. Okay, that's the first line of defense, those two things. We recommend using an exposed block. We recommend using, there's two or three that we recommend the most, and the one is called Prosoco. The other one is called Loxon by Sherwin-Williams, and they are designed to penetrate the block. It's a water-soluble material. It doesn't change the finish or the color of the material, and so it penetrates into the block, and it actually comes with a 5-year warranty. I've been recommending that for a long time. I don't know of anybody that has ever reapplied. Now, somebody may have reapplied, but I don't know of anybody that has, because once it's into the block, it has nowhere to go. So as far as drainage goes, then we get into some boots and suspenders approach, and that is there's flashing, and we recommend a product called Block Flash by MortarNet, and it's basically plastic trays at the bottom of the before the foundation, and it'll take any moisture or water that's running down the wall that's penetrated into the block, and it will then drain out of the block. Now, I have had, for what it's worth, I mean, we have very little, we don't have any water issues, moisture issues. We just don't. I have had situations where an Omni Block house has been in a situation where the washing machine backed up, or something would happen to the washing machine and caused a whole lot of water on the floor, and Service Master ended up coming out, and I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, but they go up about 18 inches, cut away all the drywall, put the fans out, the dehumidifiers, all those things. And so I asked the guy, because it was an Omni Block house, I said, what are you going to do about that block? He didn't know I was at Omni Block, but he says, oh, that'll just dry out. That's no problem. We don't do anything with that. So, that's the durability of the block itself. So,
yeah, and if it gets dry in there at all, it's the air. Again, it's the moisture will chase the dry spot. So if you put a fan up on the outside of that moisture is going to work its way to the outside of that and dry off. So concrete is porous. It will absorb water, and it's.
Hopefully that answered that question. And by the way, anybody that has questions, they can email me or give me a call, and I can answer any of the questions as well.
Okay.
If I didn't answer the question.
Do the lintels, this is from Carissa, do lintels above windows and doors cause thermal bridging? If so, does that cause any issue with cold condensing surfaces and sweating? Also, what about the vertical rebar and concrete filled cells?
Let's see, where do I want to go first? Let's start at kind of the end. Also, what about the vertical rebar concrete filled cells? Unfortunately, we do not live in a perfect world. There is not a perfect building system that doesn't exist. So we are going to have some concrete filled cells, but we don't look at the individual spots on the block wall. We look at the whole wall thermal performance. And that's the beauty of Omni Block, is it's the whole wall, not individual spots. There are going to be some spots that are going to be more energy efficient than others, but they're all going to be kind of blended together so that they will absorb that heat out of the building or into the block. So we do have vertical rebar and some of those concrete filled cells. What causes this? So let's go to the windows and doors and thermal bridging. There is, in most cases, above windows and above doors, structural requirements to solid grout the block. Again, there's no perfect building system, but we can't have super energy efficient buildings that fall down. So structure engineers always trumps insulation. So windows and doors, by the way, are not the most energy efficient parts of your building. They're the weak spots, actually. You want to have a more energy efficient building, get rid of windows and doors. Of course, we don't do that because there's trade-offs and we need windows and see the light and so on. But the above windows and above lintels, above the windows and doors are not our strengths, are not our strong points. But again, we're looking at the whole thermal performance of the whole wall.
What about, sometimes they'll use a metal lintel versus a bond beam, but the bond beam would actually be more efficient than the metal lintel.
It would be, and we kind of gotten away from metal lintels. We did that because it's really kind of quicker and easier for the mason. But we recommend using a masonry lintel or a masonry lintel, not a steel lintel. We also done, and it depends on where you're at in the country. It depends on what engineer you have. We've done a number of situations above windows and doors where we use, kind of like what you did, Keith, with that foundation wall. We will grout the inside face of the block and insulate the exterior cell. And that is the best. If we can get that through engineering, not to cheat engineering, but just to get it passed, that would be the most ideal situation.
And that's where you're not carrying a lot of weight up above. This is an interesting question on the sidebar. When you have a window opening or a door opening and your Omni Block is going above that in a masonry lintel or a bond beam, that's where all the rebar is inside the cell itself, and there's not a steel lintel below that. How many layers of Omni Block do you need for that to really work? I've run into that situation, especially with garage doors. I didn't have a garage door going up high enough, and so we ended up not doing the bond beam across that. We just sat in an LVL, actually a glue lamp right inside there.
Yeah, sometimes that is used. We try to not do that, but it's not wrong to do it. Okay, so the rule of thumb: 4 feet and under usually requires 8 inches of bond beam. Some engineers prefer 16, but some will allow us to do 8 inches. When you get 8 feet, up to 8 feet, then it's or I'm sorry, up to 12 feet, it's usually 2 courses, 16 inches of bond beam. When you're talking about your garage doors, 16, 18 feet wide, that's 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're adding more. You're adding more weight, which is an engineering thing. There's a trade-off, but there's more of a resting on each side. They're basically becoming columns on each side of the garage, and that's where the weight transfers to. Above it, they just want to have enough so there's not any what's called deflection. You don't want to have any sagging above your garage.
Right. I've always told people that if they go at least 3 courses or more, they should be okay, especially over windows and doors. Over garages, I try to push it at more courses if possible. It's not a bad thing to have a higher garage door. You need it typically because the garage door has to fit up inside there. But that's something to think about when you go through and you're creating your window openings. Let's take another question here. This is from Craig Lofgreen. I am just finishing an Omni Block home without AC. I open windows overnight and lose them at 10 and can be relatively comfortable during the Tucson 105 degrees. You probably know that person there, Denny.
I do, but he's absolutely right. It's kind of an amazing thing. I mean, when I was in Saudi Arabia, we built what they call a prototype home. It wasn't a prototype home. We built hundreds of them. It was a 2-story, about a 2,400 square foot house. And they couldn't believe how clean, how fast, how quick, and all the things that we were doing. And ultimately they closed up I kept telling them when they closed up the house, it's 120 degrees over there. I mean, it's hot. I couldn't wait for the walls to get up a little higher so I could at least stand in the shade for a little bit. But they ended up, when I was there for 7 weeks, we finished the house, well, pretty much finished it, got the windows and doors in, and they did not have any power into the home. And their security people would come in and they actually would sleep in there at night and felt like it was very comfortable. Mm-hmm. So what Craig is saying is he's I'm glad that he volunteered that information. But Craig, you should be already finished with your house, man. I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. No, he's probably doing it on his own, but it's true that and Tucson, it's that thermal flywheel again. The heat's building up in the block, but it doesn't get to the inside, and then of course in the desert it gets cooler at night, and so that heat leaves the block, only to start up again the next day. So it doesn't surprise me. I'm glad that he's experiencing that.
Okay, great.
So this question, I don't know if you want to do a quick summary. If you can, the viewer of this, you can get the exact definition and everything at the beginning, a rewatch of this video. But do you want to do a quick summary of the difference?
Well, he's in South Florida. He's in climate zone 1 or climate zone 2. Those are very low climate zones, first of all. which means that the energy code is very, very lax. South Florida uses typically regular concrete block. And then what they do, which is, in my opinion, the wrong thing to do, they fur it out with little 1-inch furring strips. They put on a 1-inch panel of a foam board, and then they sheetrock over that. They've just covered up all of the thermal mass, but that is a little less money than what Omni Block would be, truthfully. Not much, because where we get into the cost, because no one's asking about cost, but to answer the question, you really got to talk about cost. Omni Block is usually about $4 to $5 more money than standard block. So if it's a line item, and Keith, you know line items, you know, it's a line item versus line item, we are going to look like we're a lot more money than regular block. But you know that we don't have to fur out. We don't have to sheetrock. We don't have to insulate those walls. So we take that all away, and you can't do all of that furring and insulating and sheetrock with a typical 2x4 or metal stud for anywhere near $4 or $5 a square foot.
Right.
It's more like $10. Now,
you're eliminating one. Although the insulator will come in and blow in the attic, for the most part, they're only coming once. Most insulators will come twice. They'll do the walls and come back later and do the attic. Here, all they have to do is come out and do the attic. They don't have to do the walls. So you're taking that cost, that labor and time cost, out of the equation on the envelope of the home, and you're only keeping it in the attic space. That's it. Mm-hmm. And that's where you save. And I've done videos like this where here's the real cost of building a home, and there's roughly between 5 and 8 different subcontractors standing in a wall somewhere right like here to do something to that wall. Well, if you can start to remove them, then you can start to implement a better technology, and that's where the real power comes in. Is especially those showers. You eliminated a tile guy, or when you have the Omni Block exposed on the outside. Oh my gosh, all the exterior and all that scaffolding for a second subcontractor gone. It's not there.
Yeah, it's amazing how people that get going on it's so much faster. It really is. It can actually, the first time that you build with Omni Block, many times it can kind of get ahead of you. I mean, you're not ready for it to be done so quickly.
Right.
So anyway, that's the beauty. So no smoke too. That's a good question, but we're not going to probably beat the cost of what they're doing in South Florida.
No. Right. Mm-hmm. Go to the next one. So it's hi, Keith and Denny. And most plumbing and electrical conduits will need to be pre-planned for Omni Block houses. What if in future an electrical outlet needs to be added on an Omni Block wall? Thanks.
Good point. Well, first of all, they do need to be pre-planned for Omni Block. Keith, you know this firsthand, I don't know about firsthand, but you know that you can't just throw the block up and now then go, okay, now where does our electrical go and where does our plumbing go? You can't do that.
Right.
These decisions need to be made at some point. They just need to be made typically in Omni Block as before the block goes up. What we do, and not everybody does it, but if it was my house, I would tie from box to box to box. And I don't know if Keith has done this before, but you can run horizontal conduit.
Nope, you come back.
No, am I not there?
Just give him a second. There you are. We lost you for a second. Go start that over, Denny.
Okay, so I don't want to repeat too much of it, but
box to box to box.
Okay, from box. Thank you. From what you have from your outlet boxes are at 16 inches top of box, which is standard. You can run horizontal conduit from box to box to box, pretty much all the way around the house. Mm-hmm. Conduit's more expensive than it used to be, but it's still pretty inexpensive. You can do that, and then you know that you've tied the box together from box to box. So if you want to add another outlet, let's say that you have it, they're 12 feet apart or whatever code is in your area, and you want to put an aquarium in between those two, and you don't want to see the power cord. Well, you can cut into the block. Yes, you're going to make some dust, but you're also going to be able to do that very quickly and fish. You got conduit, PVC conduit. You can fish another wire horizontally, and you can add a box really anywhere you want to in the wall.
Yeah. And make sure you use metal conduit. Don't use Smurf. Because the concrete will come down.
But you can use rigid PVC. That's what we
rigid anything rigid. I made the mistake of using Smurf one time, and the concrete came down and knocked it out of the box, and so I couldn't get power to one box.
Well, the other thing is the mason can't stand it because he's trying to butter his block. He's trying to grab the Smurf. He's trying to thread it through the block and then set the block. It's like, they don't want to do that. They would rather hit a safe target. So.
It's not as I was a former electrician, so it's not a real challenge to run your electric. It's just that horizontal. Once you get up to that third course and it's 16 inches up above, once you get that done, then it's only the verticals, only the switches, and then you bring your power down from above and you power up those switches, and it goes right into your outlets too. It's not as complicated as some people think.
And the other thing that you can do, which is what I recommend, is you can find interior partition walls that abut where the block is, up to the block, and you can poke those conduits out of the block and into those partition walls. So now your electrician can drop his home runs down into the wood framing area and fish the wire horizontally into the block. That
you just have to work your electrician, and there's metal blocks that work just perfectly inside the Omni Block. And what's neat about that is those J boxes basically are going to fit nice and rigid in there versus like in a stud home. It's, they get bent out of shape, and sometimes you don't have plates that fit just right. Let's get a couple more questions here. I want to get as many. We have a lot of questions to get through, Mike, Denny. When installing Omni Block on footers, must vertical rebar be wet set? My mason is saying he wants to drill dowel the verts because he says it's hard to get wet set aligned perfectly. Thoughts?
Great question, great comment. All of that is true, but we don't do that typically. It's expensive to drill and epoxy your verts,
and you may have to have a special inspection for that.
And you may have to have a special inspection. So we try to avoid that. What we do is we supply, it's on our website under information, drop down to design illustrations and cost estimates. And the step 4 shows a rebar shop drawing, a vertical rebar shop drawing that we supply. And the point that he says that, yes, those are pretty tight areas, or cells, I should say. But what we do is I call it a cheat, is where the stretcher block is and where the rebar is supposed to be. If a mason goes to set the rebar or set the block and the rebar is in the way, most masons will right away go get a hammer or go get a saw and they start cutting and and when I see that, I recommend that you replace the stretcher block the first course with a corner block. The corner block has a full 8-inch grout cell. Yes, you're not going to have a great deal of insulation there, but it's only one course. And what they do is they bend the rebar so that subsequent courses, the rebar's in the right place so that the stretcher block will fit there. So the corner block really becomes a very universal cheat, if you will, and that's how I would do it.
Okay. All right. This is from Holden. If you're in high wind zone, hurricane or tornado, do you recommend increasing the number of full vertical grout cells?
Within reason. The answer to that is that certain high wind zones is going to have a higher requirement code-wise, and your structural engineer will be able to design to meet those winds, the wind loads that they require.
Yeah, and then most of them, it's like, what, 32 to 38 inches on center, roughly, on the verticals?
Well, we're doing, believe it or not, there's a lot of research being done right now because of the industry's doing some long overdue changing of their codes. 48 inches in many cases. Up in Michigan, we're doing more than that. Mm-hmm. We're not wanting to circumvent hurricane or tornado requirements. We're not trying to do any of that, but we also don't want to over-engineer. There's no need to over-engineer something that's going to.
You're already pretty much over-engineered when you think about it.
We're already very over-engineered. So,
Okay.
and on our website we have some great videos. Actually, Texas Tech did a wind study where they shot a 2x4 out of a cannon basically into a block wall and splintered the block, or splintered the wood. Didn't do much damage to the block. So, there's going to be, Mother Nature wins. It's just, who can play the game with them, so to speak. We are going to withstand hurricanes. We're going to withstand the winds. We're going to withstand, a fire. One of the things we're doing, matter of fact, I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go to Altadena, California, where all those fires were. Our first Omni Block house is breaking ground. They're having a breaking ground ceremony tomorrow. But what we claim and what we show is that block doesn't burn. It just doesn't burn. If you look at any fire, the residual of a fire, you see the chimney. you see masonry. But what we really want to tout is that we're not going to add anything or any fuel to the fire. So if we can, the fire's coming out, it's not going to burn our block. So that, if you want to be in a wood frame house, which you probably shouldn't be in a fire area, but you'd want to be next to a block house because it could stop and be a fire barrier for your house. So it's those are the things that happen. So between wind zone, hurricane, tornado, and fire, there's really nothing that can run with it.
Okay, let's get through some more of these here. David says, how do you find an architect or designer for a project? Are there standard floor plans that a designer can work with?
You probably can answer this too, Keith. I don't recommend ever buying a canned plan, online, because typically people, they change. As soon as you make changes, you wasted your money on the canned plan. But I do recommend people going to see these. There's just massive amounts of libraries of floor plans that maybe you can find that you can say, I like this floor plan, and then we can give it to a designer or to an architect.
In our program, we have an architect that's accessible, and him, Lonnie.
Yeah.
And Lonnie is very familiar with Denny's style, Omni Block. If you say Omni Block, he knows exactly what to do. So he's in our program. So if you do use Lonnie, he's very phenomenal working with Omni. He's done very well with me over the years on Omni Block homes I've built.
Yeah, and you were kind enough to refer Lonnie to me, and I've been keeping kind of busy too. So we refer him as well because you're right. He knows. There's an expensive way to do certain things, and there's an inexpensive way to do certain things. You end up with the same thing, but you might as well go the more inexpensive way to get what you want, and spend your money elsewhere where you want.
Yeah.
So we do have those, and we also have structural engineers. We have all of those people.
Yeah, I don't know if you still work with Jeff on some of that. He's still licensed in about 40 states or something like that.
We still work with Jeff. Jeff Hedman is a good guy. He's busy. We've had to we buried him. You probably helped bury him, so we had to move on. We have other structural engineers that we work with too.
I need to get a referral from all these guys. So let's go to that.
We need to get our list longer.
Let's go to another question here. Jabud, do Omni Block walls have similar water issues as CMUs?
Yeah, I mean, we're made with the same material. Standard CMU most of the time does not have an integral water repellent in the mix design. So there's some of that.
Listen to if you can go back to the video again. We talked about this a little earlier about a product that Denny recommends that is applied after it's installed. Plus, there's a product that they put into the manufacturing of the Omni Block, which is actually better than a regular CMU wall.
Yeah.
So go watch it again. Watch this video again.
Yeah, watch the video again.
I can't stand here and say that, hey, we're the same material. So typically, though, water issues are, when it comes down to it, it's workmanship in many cases. The mortar joints are not tight. there's gaps and so on, and we can't, workmanship is a whole other subject, so.
Yeah. Okay, next one here. Holden, which Omni Block stacking pattern is the strongest against high winds, or are they relatively the same?
I've had engineers. That's a great question, by the way. I've had engineers, that I've talked to about this very situation. Some have told me, if you take after the rebar and grout and the house is all done, you would never want to do this. But if you took a jackhammer to it and chipped away all of the block, you would still have a very structural building. It wouldn't be very energy efficient, obviously, and it wouldn't keep out the moisture, whatever. But as far as holding up the roof and being structural, it still would be that way. So the block is important, but it's really the rebar and grout that's inside the block that is giving it the strength. So to answer the question, stacking the stack bond versus running bond, it's a minute advantage to running bond, but it's not worth you thinking you've got an inferior strength block, because we got hundreds of buildings up stack bond and they've been around for a long time.
Yeah. Okay, good.
This is a good question.
David, being from Spokane with over 700 houses just burned down, I have to ask a hard question. How much heat could your block be exposed to before the styrofoam melted? We're talking about a long fire rating, Denny.
Yeah, well, the fire rating is on the 8 inches, 2 hours and 2.7 hours. It's going to be a hot fire. I hate to, you guys some very good listeners or people that come on here, because these are good questions. It is a hard question. There's a flash point, and I don't know what the flash point is to the foam, but I probably should. We pretty much say that if there is a full-blown fire within the home and it's a hot fire, the walls are going to be destroyed whether they stand or not, because the foam that you're mentioning has a flash point, but so does the copper, and so does the PVC that the copper's running in, all the things that are inside the wall. So I can't tell you that, hey, we're fireproof and no problem and you're not going to have any issues. But two things. One, we don't think the fire will get that hot in our building because it doesn't have any more things to add fuel to the fire. That's an important part of it. And I don't know if you were part of the 700 homes, but man, I hate to hear any of those. I have a really close friend that's up in the Spokane area. He did not have to evacuate, but he was just down here about 3 weeks ago, and he was asking me, ironically, about the fire issue with Omni Block that we were talking about, because he wanted to build a garage. I think now he's for sure going to build the garage out of Omni Block.
You'd have to have the fire right next door, next to a wood pile that would be burning for at least 2 hours, hour and a half. And it would be nice to know the fire rating on that, because I know we went through a fire in our home, and all the homes around us burnt down except the home that I'm living in, because we wrapped it in mineral wool, and that has a fire retardant capacity. And I think that 1.5 inches on that Omni Block has a fire rating on it. It'd be nice to know what it is. But now we're talking about defensible space. And so if the fire is 30 feet away, it can roar, but I don't think it's going to get hot enough to do what it needs to do.
The Omni Block does have a fire rating. It's 2.7 hours.
Oh, wow.
That's long.
That's a long. That's the 8 inch. 12 inch has a 4-hour fire rating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's sufficient for especially a high wind fire coming down, because if you've been into a bonfire, it just torches for like a few minutes and it starts to come down, because the fire is a triangle of fire: oxygen, fuel, and heat. And so once the oxygen is always there, but once that fuel starts to be consumed, that fire gets down pretty quick. So you just don't want to put a wood pile next to your house.
You know what the thing is the 700 houses. I didn't know that number, by the way, but what really is it's our challenge, really, Keith. It's our challenge is expose people, because most builders, nothing wrong with builders, but most builders will do what they're most comfortable doing.
Right.
And they come up from the framing industry, and they come up, all that. And, they become wood builders, and they don't really look at some of the other, like our product, for example. I mean, it's not a case of if, it's not a case of when, it's a case of if. No, it's a case of, what do they say? It's not a case of if, it's when. It's going to happen again. So I would rebuild with a material that isn't going to burn. So
yeah. And when you put stone on it, if you did do that, that's going to increase the fire rating as well as stucco. You got a 1/4 inch of gray coat on there, then a finish coat on top of that. That's all going to add to your fire rating as well. So,
yep, you could do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now the question: could someone solo stack Omni Block and take their time building their house, or does the foam inserts and rain become a problem if left up unfinished for months?
Well, that last 2 words, for months, that's a little concerning. Some people have done it. The thing that happens, the block, keep in mind, the block is stored outside. The elements are not going to bother the block at all. So you can leave those on your property indefinitely, no problem. The inserts, the expanded polystyrene inserts, are not UV stable. They're not designed to sit out in the sun. So as long as you keep them covered, you can that can take quite a bit of time. Rain is not really a problem. Snow is. You get freezing rain, something that's going to get into the block. It can expand. People that try to build in the wintertime and they don't take precaution on that type of thing, they have issues with that. That's kind of a whole other ball.
I've seen some people just take a nice 2x8 material or something and put it on the top wall as they're moving forward and put a couple block on it, and it covers that, protects all the foam, everything below that. And the foam inserts, they come in big bags, and you can lift the whole bag yourself and you go put them into a shed or garage and you're all good to go. But the neat thing is he's right there that you can take your time to do this. Every Saturday you do a run or two and you're good. You're on your way.
We've had people do it, and it's kind of fun to watch them do it. But you got to be careful when you're answering these questions that you don't. Oh yeah, you can take all the time. There's a certain thing that you don't want to have. Like I said, the block is not going to be a problem, but the inserts you gotta have them stored. By the way, Keith, those to answer you, you're absolutely right. The inserts come in stackable 100 count bags. And those bags weigh 10.2 pounds. So you can throw those things up on scaffolding. You can throw them to each other. You can, they move around on the job site very easily.
Yeah. Let's get some more questions here. Working on the ideas to add 24x36 garage. I want to have storage on the attic. Do you recommend trusses or regular lumber roof construction? These are getting in some regular questions. To me, you know how I feel about attic trusses. I hate the potential of space lost. So if you can throw some attic trusses in there, research attic trusses, and just call it storage when you go to the permitting office, and with a pull down stair, and suddenly you've got an additional square footage for super cheap. So research that. Next question. Let's take a couple more real quick here. Honey Caffina, wondering about a concrete heated floor with less heating tubes required, 1/2 inch apart. I'm not a fan of heated floors unless I'm in Canada or Alaska or the Northeast United States, or if super high altitude, because you don't get the return on your investment quick enough on that. And then if you did with an Omni Block, you wouldn't need it at all anyway. But let's go to the next question here. Gubid, can adding strapping to a truss system help fix a sagging truss if I jack it to the level before attaching? So adding a strapping to the truss. If it's already sagging, the strap isn't going to help with the sag. It's probably not engineered to handle what it's doing right away. So you can actually take that truss picture, go to a truss plant and say, hey, I've got this problem. would you suggest? And I did that with the truss plant. I said, hey, you sent me trusses. Did you factor in the snow load? They came back, said no. They came back and re-engineered the trusses and reinforced them on site. And so you can ask them how to reinforce that truss on site. Okay, next one real quick.
This is a good one.
And then, do you know of a place to get 500 underground propane tank in southern Utah area? Want to buy, not rent? Yeah, that's Blackburn Propane. Check out Blackburn Propane. They're located in Cedar City, and they will help you out. Mention my name, and they'll
Extra nice to you.
they'll be extra
They'll
nice
give you
to
that
you.
extra smile. No.
Okay. Next question, real quick. I want to get to some questions, but we're going overboard, but that's okay. What would be a fair price for spraying, painting new construction when they don't have to tape off, molding, only windows, and it's about 4,000 square feet? Having a hard time gauge painting costs. That's a really good question. That could be $6 a square foot, $3.50. I don't know. It changes whether it's 3-tone, 2-tone. The ceiling's a different price.
We have a video on that, but everybody area is different, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we did a video on that just recently. My kids are jumping in and doing videos. So go back and check a video. My painter actually talks about stuff like that. So go and watch that video.
It says painting a new home.
Yeah, painting a new home.
And he goes into just a 1-layer paint, 2-tone, 3-tone paint. But we don't get into exact numbers because everybody's different in different areas.
Okay. Any other? I know we're trying to answer as many as we can real quick here.
There's lots of thank yous, Denny.
Thank you. They're all saying thank you, Denny. We see stuff on this side here.
Oh, here's a good one. This one you'll appreciate.
Craig Lofgren just got mini splits working today. Omni Block kept me from melting during the record-breaking heat wave. Omni Block rocks. OB locks.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you very much.
And then
it's nothing I do. It's the system. It's the product that does it. It's not me, right?
I did a consult earlier this week on a student who's building a home in Florida, and he is doing Omni Block, Denny. So
great.
So
okay, here we go.
Question. I'm thinking about passive house building in Tennessee. How many inches of rigid mineral wool panels would I need? Passive Tennessee, you're not super cold, but you do get the 4 seasons. I would just do the 1 inch, and it would save you on not having to flash the windows. Once you go a thickness greater than 1 inch, you're going to have to flash the windows. So factor that cost. And the 1 inch will give you about 3.5 R value and full mold proof, fireproof, and an increased sound quality inside the entire home. That's a really interesting question, Denny. Talk about the sound deadening quality of Omni Block. I'm actually talking with a hotel company, which you and I will talk about later on, that they want to do parts of the hotel into Omni Block.
Well, Omni Block's been tested sound-wise. We did it in New York. There's a rating that people talk about more often, and it's called the STC rating, Sound Transmission Class. And that is really the indoor sound beating off different walls and so on. The one that really affects, it should be more considered when it comes to Omni Block, is the indoor-outdoor sound transmission class. And that's the from the outside to the inside. We have the testing that we're kind of off the charts in New York. We need it for the city. We needed to prove it, and we're off the charts when it comes to that. But we have a lot of stories, a lot of personal experiences that there's people in near the Brazos River in Texas. He's actually a friend of mine with his dad, and we just had finished a 2-story Omni Block house just down the street from them, and then they're near their cabin area. And anyway, they all of a sudden the alert goes off, the alarm goes off. There's tornadoes coming right for them, and they're looking at it. And I guess everybody in Texas has this thing because they can tell where the tornadoes are. They jumped into their truck and we're not going to stay here. We're going to go to the Omni Block house. And of course, there were a lot of neighbors that had the same idea. They're standing outside knocking on this guy's door. Well, this guy happened to be home, but he was upstairs in his studio. And so my friend called the guy directly because he could see he was at home. And so they're all knocking on the door and trying to get in. They finally come down and let him in. and they were kind of upset with the guy. You like, he didn't let us in, and then they closed the door, and then you couldn't hear the alarm. Like the alarm was going. I mean, that's like, are you kidding? You can't even hear the alarm in here. But there's a lot of things. I mean, the block is very sound retardant from outdoor to indoor. That's what I would be mostly concerned with. Now, if you're building and doing a sound studio inside, you're going to need to cover the walls with some absorption situation there. But the thing that I would like to point out is, we talked about the thermal mass and the heat moving passively to the walls. I mean, every Omni Block home is a passive design, just by the nature of it.
It's phenomenal. Well, let's end it right there.
No.
One more. My wife said one more.
I'm sorry, Denny. These people just love you, and I have to. Doug wants to. He posted it twice, so I want to make sure I get this up there. We're trying to skim, but he's like, Denny met with my wife and me while we were in Las Vegas for the trade show. He was very helpful, informative, and patient, which we really appreciate. And there's been several other people. We just haven't put everybody up today.
Yeah.
And then I have another one.
I need to show my wife this. This is what I need to show my wife.
Okay, tacos for us. Where can I buy in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, or can I buy straight from Omni Block website?
Have them get tacos for us. Get a hold of me or whatever. We do have a distributor in Strawn, Texas, which is southwest of Fort Worth. They have the molds. They make the block. They do buildings in DFW area. We actually have 3 houses getting ready to start in the Dallas area. One in Flower Mound, one in Justin, and one, I can't remember the name. It's about an hour and a half southeast of Dallas. But there's 3 houses that we're kind of getting ready to start. I mean, they've already gone through the process and they've ordered the block and so on. But you want to go to our website where it's under information down to design illustrations and cost estimates, because we can take your plan and we can put together the process and come up with the right block. And I've done this for Keith many, many times. And so that you get the accurate count on the block and so on. So we want to, so you can't buy from our website because everybody has different pricing and stuff, but you can work with us to get that done.
And the neat thing is they'll work with your architect and say, hey, if you lengthen or shorten this wall, we'll have no cut waste. So avoiding the cut waste, he'll deliver the block that you need without any cutting, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the analogy we've all played with, Legos. And if I give you a plan set that's Lego friendly and 100 Legos and the windows fit in there all night, you can put it together in 30 minutes, if not less. But if I give you a plan set that's not Lego friendly, and here's your little Dremel tool, start cutting 1/8 of an inch here and 1/4 inch here and 1/2 inch here, it's going to take you a lot longer, and so you're going to need more than 100 Legos because you're going to have more waste. Now you got to throw the waste away. It's just a much better program to have it designed to block the block modules.
And you'll do that for doors, windows, the whole length of the home. If you do, let's see, adjust this window just a little bit here and there, we can avoid some cut waste. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One more.
One more. Can concrete wall panels be fixed to the Omni blocks for an architectural look, as well as hiding the electrical, plumbing, and HVAC conduits between the Omni block and the panels?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm concrete panels. If they can be screwed to a regular concrete block, they can be screwed to Omni block. They can be affixed or whatever, how they get attached, as well as hiding the electric. Now, we put our electrical typically within the block, so there is no hiding the plumbing or the electrical, the HVAC conduits. So we do that in the design phase. So we don't really have to cover much. I may not be answering the question correctly, but from what I understand, we that doesn't really apply to us very much.
Right. One thing that I've done is, this might help this person, is that when I was doing my home, I actually had a garage that was Omni block, and I knew where my bench was going to be. So as we were putting the Omni block down on that one bond beam going across, I actually put J-bolts inside there, screwed them in, put the J-bolts in there. So when the concrete wrapped around that J-bolt, I had a rigid bolt. So I just put a ledger on there right over the bolts, and I had it mounted to the whole wall. It's pretty slick. So if you can time things right, and I think if you had a concrete, something, if you wanted to affix like a fireplace mantle or something that you wanted to, if you time it right and work it out just right with the cells, you can put in some attachments and hangers and J-bolts and all kinds of stuff to mount something super heavy. So just
we did, it's on our site. I have it. I didn't bring it for you guys to show, but really cool. They had a plate steel, 1/4 inch by maybe 10, 12 inches. And it was going to be their art that they were going to put their art on. And they actually did this, what you're talking about. They actually embedded the J-bolts. Well, actually it wasn't J-bolts. They embedded the steel that was welded to the shelf, if you will, onto the wall, mounted into the block. I mean, I'm a kind of a big guy. I stood up there and didn't move that shelf at all. It was solid. And it was only plate steel of about, 1/4. But I'm going to guess about 1/2 inch.
Okay.
So,
just more comments are coming in through Denny. Thank you, Denny, for being here. It has been very exciting to hear the answers to these burning questions. I think I can speak for everyone when I say we all really appreciate you. So,
well, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys. You're not showing any of the comments that you're getting. See, that you're being very, modest, because I'm sure they're saying the same thing about you guys. So
we got a great group. They are amazing. Yes.
they're very
I want to do this again. When do I get to come back? I mean,
let's do this after. I'm gonna tell them about I'm gonna be at an event in October.
But that's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. But maybe after that event we can do it again.
Okay. Well, yeah, the event in October, but we appreciate that too. So
okay.
Thanks, everybody. I'm glad everybody.
We'll be here next week again every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Save your questions from then. If you can't, go to the website, How to Build Your Own Home, contact the instructor, leave your question. They come to me through an email. I print them up and we can get those questions answered first. And until then, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.